This is Have You Met? My guest today is a retired US Army veteran who, in 2008, suffered severe wounds due to an improvised explosive device. His injuries were extensive and included loss of sight, multiple shrapnel injuries, along with nerve damage to his left arm. Thanks to his courageous and selfless service, he was immediately awarded the Purple Heart Medal by the US President. Today, he's an established author, presenter, athlete, and motivator. He's won awards for his contributions to the blind community. He's medaled at the national level of both the Summer and Winter Olympics, and he has his own non-profit organization, Blind Endeavors. His accomplishments are too many to list, and the list is still growing. Have you met Steve Baskis? So Steve, tell me about, or a little bit about kind of who you were as a person and what you like to do before your injuries.
Well, I was a person that grew up in many places here in the United States. My father is a research scientist and engineer, still does a lot of that work. And he would drag the family around everywhere. From a young age, I was moving to different states. I was born in Southern Illinois, and Illinois I'd probably consider home in the sense that's where it was it was my stomping grounds. But yeah. Southern Illinois, to paint a picture, where I lived was the Shawnee National Forest or State Forest, and it was it's a Native American tribe and group, but it's very wooded, and I grew up running around in my backyard in a forest and along creeks. Amazing. And it was just simple, living really. My dad built the house with his hands, and I'm 35 at the time of this recording, but it was a great, living there in Southern Illinois was amazing. And we moved around Illinois, Kentucky, Texas. I've lived in Wisconsin, Georgia, Florida, New York, and now Colorado. So, wow. So just a lot of different and multiple places in each state. Yeah.
So you really got.
But yeah, two brothers and a half sister, and my brothers are younger than me, but we were poor. My dad was trying to become something, with his research, doing stuff with his research and it's mainly technology and inventions. And so, but he grew his business and makes money off patents and things. And he provided for the family, and he always wanted us to show us, things that were close to us outside, wherever we went. The tourist stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, it was an amazing thing to be able to move around, and see a lot of stuff, especially, the state that I'm in now, not being able to see.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I guess you met a lot of people as well doing that. You were able to make a lot of friends moving around, or?
Yes. That was hard, back before, this connected world that we live in. I didn't have we didn't have cell phones and stuff, and so and even email addresses. So some of those early friends and stuff were hard, I've not kept with.
Yeah.
But it helped me adapt. It helped me learn how to make new friends. I was always the new kid in class, and that was hard, at times. But a new walk, a different path or journey, to the school or whatever. And whether we were in the desert, in Arizona, and climbing on red rock buttes, it was fun. That was really cool in the country here in central Illinois, just corn and soybean fields as far as the eye can see, like a Siberian wasteland or something, in the winter. And so, it was, and then the cities, New York and Chicago, I lived basically very close to those cities. So yeah,
it's
very different experience everywhere.
Yeah, a lot crammed in. Yeah, that's really cool. And what did you like to do with yourself? Like before you had any of your injuries, what was your kind of hobbies and what were your passions?
Sure. Yeah. I actually, growing up, I played the drums. My dad tried to introduce us to to get, playing the guitar and drums. And I played with the guitar and the drums, and I was off and on throughout my whole life. I still do that.
Yeah.
And I'm pursuing audio, some audio engineering, as a major in school. But,
cool.
But, I played all the typical sports that are available here in the U.S., like baseball and basketball, soccer or football, as the Europeans say. And so that was a lot of my day in and day out was playing outside and with my brothers and touch football or whatever, and it was nothing like what I'm doing now in my state of being blind, but
yeah.
Those were like team sports and a lot of hand-eye coordination, like with a ball and that just doesn't work very well for a blind person. But if you throw a ball at them, but bad jokes, but the dark humor.
You got to laugh sometimes, haven't you?
Absolutely. But yeah, I think in high school I worked on vehicles. I liked working on suspension systems and like on cars and Jeeps and some motor stuff. I'd go off-roading, I'd take different vehicles off-roading. And where I grew up in rural Illinois and a couple other places, the kids, it's all farmers and kids that work on, the tractors and stuff. And so I got exposed to that kind of stuff and having bonfires in the fields and stuff, lighting them with compound bows, like, with lighting big fires. So doing crazy stuff, and just fooling around, but having fun with my friends.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Sounds like you had a great kind of childhood and that run up to being an adult, like the whole kind of teenagers, and you were just in fields. And I mean, that's the best way. I grew up in countryside, probably not comparable to your countryside, but I love just being out there. I haven't done it for a while, but I love just being out in the fields, like you say, like having a fire and having some drinks or whatever, and just having a good time,
Just a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother is Filipino. And my father is Lithuanian descent.
Oh, cool.
His father's father came across from Lithuania, and so some of our old photographs are black and white, very stoic, no smiling. It's very colonial dress, it's very interesting to look at when I decided to look at those photographs. But my mom still kind of doesn't. Her English is all right, but she kind of ran away from the Philippines and got married once and then married second to my father and had me and my brothers. But there were some rough spots, in the sense of moving around and living in like what we call mobile homes or trailers, just more low income kind of residents.
Yeah.
But that changed over the years. A lot of change in life. It's the most constant thing you can expect, I guess, in life.
Yeah, that's a certainty. For sure. What caused the changes? Was it your parents kind of finding new opportunities, or?
Yeah, I mean, my mom working on her own, and then eventually spending more time at home. My father just continued to work hard with his business and just found more business partners and more opportunities. And that just allowed us to move, which was, again, a lot of the change. And every time we moved somewhere, we were in a nicer living situation. So my dad was making, more money and inventing more things. So
that's cool. Did he invent anything that we use like today? Is there anything that...
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that was built actually, I believe, in the UK. But my father was in some magazines like Discover and Fortune. Was on the History Channel here in the US. I don't know where they air all these shows, but scientists and inventors they kind of get the backseat a lot of times for recognition. my dad had some problems with business partners that they want to try to seize the rights to things, but because they kind of do their share of marketing it and publicizing it and talking and being the point person, sometimes in the sense of like interfacing with the public and people and so but yeah, my dad, some of the processes are chemical related, so an enclosed environment to try to prevent pollution, but like a long name for one of my dad's inventions is a thermal depolymerization processor.
Wow.
And it's a conversion process. The best way I can put it is it mimics what the earth does in the sense of like subduction zones and heat and pressure, and turns organic material into like a fossil fuel. So this is a system that treats organic material and puts a lot of pressure and heat on it, and different heat and pressure provide different byproducts. And
wow.
And so like oil, petroleum, and gases. And so that's some. I worked for 3 years doing IT work, like computer work for one of his companies, and it was water treatment. So I worked for one of his companies in Kentucky doing water, treatment, and a bunch of high voltage and low voltage wiring, and like running computer systems and monitoring, test results on water and stuff. So that was what I was doing immediately before I went in the military.
Cool. So how did you decide you wanted to join the military? Was that something you've always wanted to do, or how did it come about?
My family has a big history of serving in the U.S. military.
Yeah.
I have uncles and aunts and grandfather and my father. My father's a Vietnam era veteran. My grandfather served in World War II and worked in China and North Africa, a lot of bombing raids out of North Africa. He was a flight engineer for B-24 Liberators. Right. And so, he serviced a lot of the aircraft that would fly bombing missions over Europe.
Yeah.
Which is such a horrible strategy, and I think, to bomb the entire country. But but that's what they had decided to do, I guess, back then, carpet bombing. But those kinds of things, of course, inspired me and made me think about the military. But I was living in New York State on Long Island. Long Island is right next to Manhattan, which is New York City. Manhattan's an island of itself, and about 25 minutes maybe, from downtown New York City. And of course, I was there from 98, 99 to like 2002. And 2001, of course, September 11th happened. And I had been in the city that week. I was just, running around. It was September. It was weather was nice. And that week, of course, the towers fell. And from that point forward, every day, on the news, you heard about the war that was raging in Afghanistan and Iraq. And so again, it just sparked my interest, and I decided that I was gonna eventually join. It took 5 years though. I didn't join, of course, in 2001. I was too young. It's like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah. So you were how old when you joined then?
I was 20. I had just turned 21, nearly, and it was January of 2007.
Yeah,
is when I enlisted in the United States Army as infantryman, which I believe is infantry is a French word. Foot soldier, I think, is what. But I was like a rifleman. I was trained to be a rifleman.
Yeah,
a ground pounder, a grunt, as they call it. The guys that work on the ground and do all kinds of they close with the enemy. That's their mission, is to engage enemy combatants.
Yeah, that's something. Wow. And so, was there a lot of training and stuff? A lot of time to go through that to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, there was basic training, which really is a transition from become civilian to soldier.
Yeah,
and then I was wounded pretty early in my service, and I had big dreams and goals of working in the unconventional warfare side of things, special operations.
Yeah.
And that was the pipeline I was hoping to go down, and I wanted to help people. Actually, it's funny, people probably think join the military, you could join the Peace Corps, do something else to help people.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in war, necessarily. I just I saw people I watched people jump from the towers, and that affected me quite deeply.
Yeah.
Like civilians. And then I saw civilians in a foreign, war, suffering, as well as soldiers from blasts, injuries, and so I wanted to ultimately become a medic of some sort, or a physician's assistant. That was the goal.
Yeah.
And I early on, I went through a lot of training to become a personal security specialist. We went through some specific training to be a bodyguard, to put it quite simply, mm-hmm. and drive armored vehicles, evasive, maneuvers, and offensive, defensive driving, and how to approach your objective and park the vehicles a certain way, and to let the principal or the VIP out, and to walk with him in crowd situations. Just how to deal with people, ornery people,
yeah,
people that won't leave you alone, and then of course all weapons training and just a lot of hard training to teach you to be strong, but mainly mentally. If you are concentrated on things properly as a young soldier. A lot of it is mental. I mean, maybe in the world, in life, it's mental, but of course, the physical stuff drives some hard mental challenges.
Yeah.
But it was a unique experience, and I deployed later in that year to do more training in Kuwait in the desert, and then ultimately to Iraq to work in Baghdad, the capital city.
Yeah.
And we would just provide security, close security, wherever this brigadier general would travel on the ground or in the air in Iraq.
Right. Okay.
Or Iraq.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know which one's the best to say. So how long after you first joined, how long after you first started the military, were you deployed to Iraq or Iraq or yeah?
It was. So I was in training from January till I left, which was in October, November timeframe of 2007. And the first so many years of serving in the military, you have your advanced training and basic training, and then you do a lot of training at your duty station, wherever you end up with the unit that you're working with. So I was still really just in training and also learning how to work with the actual unit that I was attached to, and so it was just continued training. There was a lot of people that were experienced, of course, in my unit that they were our mentors on the ground in Iraq, and just being in Iraq, it was even just training in itself,
Yeah, I bet. And so to kind of lead me up to your injuries and how go from kind of this point, can you take me on that journey? I don't know how much of the actual day or whatever you remember. I mean, I'm assuming it's very blurry memory, but just whatever you kind of remember or feel comfortable to tell me about would be.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's important. I recall mostly everything except for when the blast occurred. I don't recall a lot of the the transfer of my body to the U.S.
Yeah,
but it was May of 2008, and we were serving. We had a mission to the northern, to a place north of where we were. Really, it was a long a long distance kind of trip in the sense of moving on the ground. And we kind of have an air and ground component all the time, like a way to move the general in any kind of situation. And so we moved on the ground. I was part of the ground movement that day in a convoy. And so, the day starts kind of really early, or sometimes we operate in the middle of the night, but we were going to operate during the day. I wake up maybe 2, 3 in the morning, and I make sure my personal ammunition and weapon system and stuff is squared away. I put all my ballistic protection on, and I make my way out to an area where they have water. And I'm tasked, any of the guys, whoever wants to get up early, I was always up before everybody and down to the vehicles. I was kind of alone, where the vehicles would be parked, these up armored vehicles and Humvees and different kinds of names for these vehicles. But I'd load the vehicle, with everything we needed and just double check the first aid stuff, medical equipment, get the radios encrypted, and mount the weapon systems. And we would then line the vehicles up and wait. The team would get all their equipment on, and we would wait. And the general would walk out with his aide and from our multinational division forces headquarters, and we would begin the mission. And we'd roll, on the road, and we'd have all kinds of internal communication going on and external, like to the different radio sites that were located for just to keep safety and understanding of what's going on the battlefield. And so we were the lead vehicle. We were always the lead vehicle. Lead vehicle, of course, is where all our heads are on swivels, and we're trying to keep aware of what's going on, and we're moving down the route and looking at the road and what's going on. And the first half of the mission went well. The second half of the mission, on our way back to our forward operating base, we struck a improvised explosive device, this shape charge, and it detonated off to our right. And when it detonated, it killed my good buddy, Staff Sergeant Victor Cotto was his name. And to explain the blast, I think a lot of people, they think of movies and stuff. Nothing has to hit you necessarily when a blast happens. Just the shock wave could decapitate you, literally cause organs to collapse. Yeah. It's very powerful, a lot of energy. Kind of like when thunder goes off, you feel that energy, but the earth shakes, Yeah. And so that detonated, and this piece of metal hit the side of the vehicle. It was propelled by this blast, and it punched a hole, and shrapnel, small fragments, just spewed the interior of the vehicle. And I was hit with those, and my buddy was hit, and other team members, and I lost my sight, and he lost his life. And to go on, I mean, more or less, my team, did a lot of things and were involved with some other things, and ultimately bandaged me up on the road and got me to a nearby outpost where some helos could land, and I was off to Germany, and then Germany to the Walter Reed within like 72 hours. Wow. With a bunch of surgeries and different things. I had artery severed in my left arm, and I had subdural hematoma, bleeding on the brain, and fragments that entered the side of my head and my sinus cavity, took my sight, my smell. I don't feel anything in my left hand and arm. Almost lost it at the elbow, but they saved it. And I had shrapnel, fragments in both my legs. My body armor saved my abdomen. But yeah, it was a bad day, to say the least. I joke about it, but it was just unfortunate timing, you meet people that serve 30 years and they come out unscathed in the sense of physical injuries. But yeah, it was just a bad day.
Yeah. Really bad day. Yeah.
Trying to make the best of it now, moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause it would be very easy at that point to just let that consume you and just go into a dark, dark place, never to return. And just, you could just spend your whole time thinking about that. And I mean, how do you even begin to deal with that and come back to being, the character that you are now? How did you begin to work through it?
I feel like, I've not changed too much in the sense of, who I am as a person. I'm very much the same person. I've had to learn how to live life, from a blind perspective. But, I woke up in the hospital with, these patches on my eyes and tubes coming out of my arms and neck and leg. And both my hands, my left arm was bandaged up. I couldn't use it. And my right hand had these steel bars in them. I had metacarpal fractures, so I couldn't even use my hands. I was being fed and stuff. And I remember coming out of this state of, medically induced, coma, and feeling very weak, the weakest I've ever felt in my life, and so close to, I guess, death, but my family and many people came to my side and explained to me, what happened, because it was very surreal, to have been on one side of the planet doing something and then wake up with no visual reference the entire time of traveling, in an unfamiliar place. So that was very odd, and I had to piece that together. And my brain, of course, I'd suffered a mild traumatic brain injury, was rattled and was not really thinking straight. But over time, I slowly grew more conscious of the world. And medicine was kind of the different medicines I was on, were waned off, and I pieced, within about a week or two, I was thinking, about the things you're asking. Like I was thinking, well, how am I going to drive myself places? Or how am I going to even walk to these unfamiliar places or things I, want to do? How am I going to go to school?
Yeah.
I was 22 at this point, and, everything. Yeah. I mean, just everything that you do. And I always tell people, close your eyes, imagine laying in your bed when you wake up in the morning and all the tasks and things you do.
Yeah.
How would you accomplish them? Whether that's making coffee or, or getting from where you need to be to, to work. I mean, getting to where you need to go. And so, it's if you play that like mental experiment, you got a lot of questions. People
big time.
would,
big time. I mean, I even try and this is a bit of a weird thing probably, but I've on occasion I've tried to do that physically. I've tried to actually walk around and try and see how challenging it is to go from just even one place to a room away, or or the other end of the room, and just easily walk through the door. Even just simple things, and really. Yeah, not that simple, right?
No, it's not. I mean, I think growing up, I played, we played games, either in really dark situations or even in the military, we used to take weapon systems apart blindfolded. It's not just a movie thing. I mean, we would just, you got a lot of time on your hand, and knowing your weapon system was just part of the the training. So just being able to do something in the dark is important, and so it's just an odd thing, but we do kind of do this stuff, in life from time to time. You operate in dark places. So, but to be completely blind and able, to see anything or unable to see anything is very. Something I didn't really think too much about, right? when I was in Iraq, you heard a lot about amputee, burn victims, and just blast injuries and stuff. But I just failed to think about being completely blinded, from a war injury when I was there.
Yeah.
Although we were reminded every day, wear your ballistic eye protection. We had, but when a massive bomb detonates next to your vehicle and it goes through an armored shell, it's eye protection is not going to do you too much necessarily. So
no, indeed. So for you, what were some of the hardest things that seem kind of simple and super everyday, like chores or whatever you just actions? What were the hardest actions to adjust to and to start doing again after you lost your sight? Sorry, I made that a bit of a mouthful right there.
No, I understand what you're asking. There were, I think just coming to some sort of understanding initially I think it happened quickly for me. It doesn't always happen. At least just like, okay, I volunteered for this. I have to own up to my decisions. These decisions I've made. I knew it took me a long time to decide to go in the military. I had that, and I really thought about that, and I thought about every day before I was injured in Iraq. This is very dangerous. Anything could happen, and so when it happened, I wasn't, that surprised necessarily. It's just frightening to lay in a hospital, to not see the world. I remember a hard thing was I felt like I was falling into this deep, dark, black abyss. That's what I like to say. It was very sick. It made you sick, I was starving for light, to see something, to see change, variation. Yeah. And so that was that at the root fundamental level, that was really hard initially but every day, you can't do anything about it. I had my dad give me a flashlight. He had him buy a flashlight, and I would hold it to my eyes trying to see light, early on, because we weren't sure if some of the operations would help, and because I have no light perception. But I think, just the simple things in life are what drive us crazy, whether you're blind or not, the day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
And so, these big adventures I've gone on are amazing, but you have a lot of good effort and teamwork. People there, a plan, strategizing, all these things. But, sometimes when you're doing stuff on your own in life, and if you don't ask for help, because you're too proud, or you don't have help, or people that don't understand how to help you, you feel alone. And that was hard. It was hard to, how do I develop these techniques or systems to get simple things done in life? If you break some sort of, sauce container and it just goes everywhere in your kitchen, how are you going to deal with that? If you're alone, it goes everywhere. There's glass everywhere. It's just like, but you learn it all. I slowly started to learn it because that's what you deal with all the time, every moment of your life. And so those are the hard things, I guess I would say, and I still deal with that from time to time. It's been 13 years so already that now that I've been blind.
Wow. And how do you get all the glass in the sauce when you drop that?
Just like anybody, I probably clean even more because you just don't. So you
want to make sure
it's just a system, it's concentric circles and isolating things, and it's actually trying to just eliminate the problem altogether, and to be very strategic and in the sense of operating, and confined spaces, or, like using this tray to work on, so to isolate spills. If you make a lot of mistakes, if you don't, then you don't have to do it. But that's essentially what it does. It makes you think about life in a very systematic way. Blindness. Everything that you do is like has to be organized, and that's really all it is. I mean, it would really be horrible if everything was really dynamic. Your friends come in and move all your furniture in your house, and
that would be terrible. They would not be good friends.
I got ways to get back at them. So, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's just a system. You develop systems.
Yeah, you just work around it. You adapt. And
Exactly.
What about some of the other little things that, maybe people don't think about automatically, or they probably do nowadays with phones and how a part of our lives they are. But how, like, dealing with a smartphone, I guess you have everything, it has audio, it can tell you what's what. Is that right? Or how does that work for you?
You're absolutely right. The way there's something called a screen reader. And screen readers do just what the title says. They read the screen. So to give you just a basic example is all technology, of course, can be made accessible. When I use a computer, I'm usually interfacing with the computer with a keyboard, which is tactile. It has buttons and keyboard shortcuts and so there's elements on a screen when you open up a window or you're in a window, there's these different elements that can be tagged. Think of a whole nother layer of like programming. And this programming is not necessarily visual to a person, but when I execute certain kinds of gestures or keyboard command combinations, I am able to navigate and get feedback of where I am. To paint an even more clear picture, if I was holding my iPhone on something that is not tactile, it's flat, smooth surface, like a mobile phone, these smartphones nowadays, when I touch a corner of the screen, and there's a phone icon there, it's like I've moved the cursor there and it says phone application.
Okay. And
then I can use a gesture, like tapping, double tapping to open it. I could double tap anywhere on the screen. When I hear phone application, my focus is there and I can double tap anywhere. And it's like, for you, it's like you touch and click. Your click, so I'm I'm finding it, it tells me, and then I'm double tapping and essentially typing. Everything that you can think of can be done. I mean, it's pretty, quite amazing. My home's got a lot of smart technology in it. I mean, I can manually, navigate in a graphical user interface and select things, or I can speak to the like personal assistants like Siri or Alexa and get them to execute something. So it's great. It's a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, compared to most of history, it's certainly not the worst time to be blind, right?
No, yeah. I joke. I've lost my sight in the best time ever. So it's very. The iPhone had come out the year that I deployed.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I came home, and there was no accessible iPhone. 2008.
Yeah.
But then in 2010, they released the first iPhone that had a screen reader on it, and from there, a lot of other manufacturers and things have adjusted, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah, game changer. Which other kind of adaptive and assistive and technologies like that, things that make the world more accessible, which other ones do you use, or which other ones would you like to tell me about? Is there anything that's really amazing?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most simple things that I use more than almost anything is my white cane. And it's a very rudimentary way of, I guess assistive device, a simple thing. They do make fancy canes that have all kinds of novel, lasers and things in them, and sensors, accelerometers, and they're trying to figure out ways to couple technology with the cane. But a cane just kind of clears a path. and people, there's a technique to it. When you see a blind person swinging their cane, they're basically clearing the step that they're going to take. So if I swing from the left to the right, if I swerve from the left to the right, before I step out with my right leg, I've cleared the space there. So then I sweep left and step forward at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I'm clearing. And yeah, people often ask, how does that work if there's a table or something? Well, you generally know the context of where you're going, or you understand as you move through unfamiliar spaces, by sound. You might hear that you're, in a hotel lobby because you were going there. You got out of a cab, and so if you know that there's certain furniture in certain atmospheres or environments, you may just widen your swing of your cane. And it's such a simple technique, but it allows for mobility, because I walk around like a zombie with my arms out if I don't have my cane. So which is not the greatest way to walk around. So
plus, I guess it keeps you really present as well. Like you're really thinking in that moment, like what's around me, what's going on, where am I going, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of hard to be in the beginning. It's become more automatic, I guess. But yeah, my mind was, I lived in this strange world of trying to interpret things, and be very focused. But the longer that I'm blind, I spent 22 years of my life sighted, and I've been blind for 13 years. So I guess if you give me that same time frame, maybe I'll feel like I've adapted and have grown to know how to be someone that is blind,
Yeah. You still feel like you're learning and kind of getting to grips with certain aspects of being blind.
I do. I mean, I encounter things that I once did as a sighted person, every so often, now as a blind person, that I'm like, okay, how am I going to solve this problem or figure out a technique or system? So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's the same when like for anybody, right? You're always learning in life. That's just what life is. It's just a learning process in a way.
Especially, traumatic. It's funny because people generally, some people, they love, they like being challenged sometimes, right? Maybe they want to run a race or they want to learn something new, but it's those unexpected challenges in life that really test us, those traumatic events that we did not strategize for or plan for necessarily, that have the largest effect on our mind and who we are.
Yeah.
And it's that's what blindness was for me and a lot of people.
Yeah. Before we start talking about a few more of your adventures and challenges that you've kind of taken on intentionally, can we rewind a minute and just to touch on a subject that's probably a very sensitive one, I imagine, but how was it, like, which was harder, or what were the differences in terms of processing, losing your sight, but at the same time processing losing like your partner, and I'm guessing friend? Do you remember you said your partner Victor when in the same incident? Like, what was that whole, like, it must have been so much to deal with, those two things, two different angles, but right at the same time. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I'm still dealing with that, trauma. We're not like solid state drives or hard disks or drives, we don't go, oh, we can just delete something out of our mind. Right. I mean, I think some people would hope for that kind of stuff, I mean, ultimately, I think how I look at those things in life, those negative things, or how I try to approach it is, the common thing that people have heard is, they make you stronger, they can make you stronger, or make you at least smarter, if you encounter something in the future, again, that may be similar, help you make a better decision. Losing losing friends in war is a very, I think losing anybody is hard, of course, no matter how they die. But, in Iraq, people will ask me, so what happened? What was your accident? And it's not an accident is the thing. The idea of humans hunting humans is not something that most people often think about, thankfully, but that's really, there was another human being or person that was trying to kill me and my friends.
Yeah.
And so kind of trying to digest that and digest the decisions you made that day. You think back on like, oh wow, if we would have we talked about that, why didn't we do that? It would have been different,
Yeah.
If I was looking to the left instead of maybe straight forward to the right, would that have saved my eyes a bit more? Those subtle things, you just kind of, but I try not to dwell, on that. I look forward to the challenge of understanding, well, what do I have to do to live and to find a way, to the future, and I focus on the challenge that's at hand, is the best way I guess I can explain it. I definitely think about the past and those things, but I think I'm just describing to you how I've dealt with the stuff. And I'm trying to paint a picture of some things that maybe people don't often think about, with the words I'm using, like humans hunting humans, or
it's powerful imagery, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it's what it is, right? It's the reality of it.
It is the reality. It's people wanting to hurt you, and a war is not, I think a lot of people don't have to deal with it, thankfully. At least where I live, where I've grown up in my country. Of course, there are bad things that happen everywhere, but I mean, it's an interesting thing. You can get lost in the idea of hurting others, like just either, what do you attach to that? Are you looking at it like you're protecting your country, your freedoms? Or are you looking at it, are you just there because you're there and you're dealing with it in the moment and you're protecting your comrades? It's your brothers and sisters in arms. And it boils down to simple things, for me. And I would say a lot of people who have been in those situations, you become a dedicated person with your work, and the people that you're forging a relationship with in a hard, strenuous situation, it makes them very close, like family. And so when you lose someone that's family, it's hard. And but I don't ignore it, and I don't dwell on it. I just try to find things that excite my mind, and wow, I can go do that still. I can enjoy cuisine, the sounds. I can pay attention to something else that my brain wasn't focused on. Mm-hmm. I hear and listen and feel things a lot of times that my sighted counterparts will say, Steve, you pointed out something I didn't even notice, like I wasn't even paying attention to that noise or something. And that's unique in some of the parts of the world I've been, I've been all over the world. And it's interesting.
There must have been a really hard process, but I completely see what you mean by if it's kind of in your head, you let it be and you're not going to just ignore it, but you can't dwell on it, like you say.
I mean, you just can't. I think it's maybe partly because I accepted that it was my decision, and I ultimately could have just went down a path that was less risky, Although in life you never know what can happen to you, even just crossing the street, as everybody says. Some I don't know. Do you want to be known for climbing on a mountain and dying in an avalanche, or do you want to be known for being, hit by a bus or something? I mean, I guess neither, but, at the end of the day, but
if I get to choose,
but if we can choose, but, it's interesting the way we all choose to live. And there's no right or wrong. I guess I would say necessarily.
So on that subject and on the way you choose to live and the things that excite you and the things you kind of use to help move yourself forward. And I guess partly the ways you have moved yourself forward is all your adventures and traveling and sports and athletics and all this kind of, and your drumming and all these different kind of things. So tell me, a few of these that are at the top of your list and talk to me a little bit about them.
Sure.
And how you started with these kind of stuff after losing your sight.
Yeah, it started in the hospital bed. I was laying there and every day I had an OT, PT, like a specialist, occupational therapist and physical therapist come and they were doing work with me. And, physical therapist, I'm just doing all kinds of exercise because I had lost like 38 pounds from the injury. And so, it started like with exercise and stuff. And I was thinking, I was in the best shape of my life before I got wounded. It's probably why I survived. And I was like, I want to get back to that. Yeah. I want to be the best blind person I can be, and be strong and capable and independent. And that drove, it's still a very solid foundation of how I think about things. And so I just attached myself to the idea to sports and recreation. And I soon realized that, a lot of things are relative. So when I got out of the hospital and I was looking for things to do, and I realized, sometimes there's organizations, because people were coming to the hospital and talking about their organization and how they help people that have a disability. I was like, you know what? I'll look for some sports or recreational things and see if I can go and do something with some people that are willing to help, Yeah. And the whole path of like trying to get to the where they do the event and meet people and then pack for it, and it was all training. It's all practice. It all helped me. I had to learn how to overcome the fear of not wanting to leave the house and being stressed about strangers and going in a taxi alone, blind, and this idea of people could steal from you. And so I just started to go to these events, and the sports itself just made me stronger. And so I just kept doing that. And I've been able to hike and climb, everything from, whitewater kayaking and sailing, and to rock climbing and ice climbing and mountaineering over peaks over 20,000 feet, every continent except Antarctica. I've been able to do this with great teams and great people, who ultimately need a lot of credit. They're there to support me and provide guidance, and we work as a team to accomplish something amazing. Yeah. And so it started in the hospital bed, and very, very early on. And the very first year I ran half of the Chicago Marathon. I climbed a 17,000 foot volcano in Mexico, and with Eric and a group of international kids, and I did the Augusta half Ironman triathlon in Georgia here in the U.S.
That's insane. In your first year.
In the first year after being wounded, about a
mad.
year, right after a year after leaving the hospital.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And it hurt really bad. Those were very hard. I did not feel as strong, of course, as who I was before, and it was very hard to deal with that mentally. But slowly but surely, crawl, walk, run, and over the years, I've been able to build my strength and cardio and everything back up, and just confidence to not let blindness limit my ability. Yeah. I tell people don't. You can feel that. Yeah. I tell people not to diss my ability. Just but as a joke, some will say that. I really don't care what lingo people use. Just as long as you give me a chance, that's what I hope people allow, as people the opportunity to try and not label them broken, because then most people are going to act broken, if they don't have a strong mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%. And I fully agree that, everybody, well, I think what you are doing and what people, like we said, Eric Weinmeier, is just showing people what is possible. Yeah. And it's things that I guess if somebody had said to me when I was younger, did you know there's going to be blind people that are going to go and do this and that and this, and if you become blind, you can do this. It seems incredible, right? It seems surreal, but yeah, you're out there, you're paving the way.
Definitely. It was not the mission. It was not the idea of, my life, but sometimes in life we don't pick and choose, it's just how it is.
You just follow it and see where it goes. At what point in that journey was the Soldiers to Summits thing that you did with Eric? Because that was where just to anybody listening or watching, that was where I found out about you, Steve, wasn't it? From Eric's book, No Barriers.
Sure, yeah. Well,
he writes
that
very
was
favorably about you.
Yeah, that was a film actually too. It's called High Ground. The Soldiers to the Summit expedition, and it kind of grew and turned into a formal event and organization. An event or mission for an organization called No Barriers. Mm-hmm. It's known as No Barriers Warriors now, but our trip was an expedition, more or less. So it's the Soldiers to the Summit expedition. Yeah. And I think they had plans to strategize ways of trying to, advance it to something. But for the people on the trip, it was an adventure in the Himalayas. And that took place in 2010. And so I was wounded in 2008. And so, that was my second big climb on a mountain and near Mount Everest, in the shadow of Everest, as they say. You could point to it. Up the Khumbu Valley there near Mount Everest, I have people, we stop on the trail and they're like, Steve, let me see your trekking pole. And they'll point it and they'll hold it and they'll point it up, at the mountain. Yeah. And, the mountain's like 9 miles away and it's still like, there's a bunch of big mountains in that area.
Yeah, I'd love to go there and look around. It just looks the most breathtaking place.
Yeah.
Can you feel the presence of all the huge mountains around you when you're there?
Definitely. Yeah. Sound bounces off objects, and when you're close to them, you have that feeling of if you ever walked in a closet or something, pay attention to the acoustics. You feel that even in valleys, and then when you're on the top of a peak, there's just a void. The sound travels infinitely in every direction. And many blind people will describe that, feeling. If you're in the woods, amongst trees, and it is an insulated feeling, like a soft, you become very aware of the world from the sound perspective of acoustics and sound, and
very tuned in.
It's interesting.
Yeah. That is fascinating. I guess it just improves and constantly gets better. Like how well you can feel what's around you and where you are.
Yeah, physiologically, nothing improves, but your way as you attach the object's name or something or an experience to the sounds, you build a really good way to understand the world from the perspective of sound, which is it's improving, definitely. Just not like I'm not growing another organ, that a sensor or something is how doctors have explained it to me. But I'm very much just learning how to perceive the world in a different way. Yeah.
Have you ever looked into any of this like sonar stuff?
Well, I do.
I read a bit about it.
I have read about it. Well, ultimately, that is what we're doing. I mean, when you walk through a room and the reverberations of you moving around in the room, just even if you're just stepping, those sounds bounce off objects and you hear the room. I forget the term for the rooms that are built to be absolutely quiet. There's a term. But you know, in those rooms, you don't hear the room. You actually hear your body. You hear the blood coursing through your veins and your heartbeat. And it's actually a scary experience from the things I've learned about. I've never been in the room, but that's so our world is not really quiet. Is an interesting thing to think about, but nothing is really quiet, you know. But sonar, clicking, like when I drag my cane across the floor, it's subtly causing the room to come alive, you know, and that gives me perspectives. But I'm not actively going like clicking necessarily. Sometimes I do, but I don't do it like some. I've heard of some of these interesting blind characters out there that maybe they have a better sense, you know, their organ is you know, like people's vision can be better than others. They might have a better way of processing, you know, the information.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of people deal with it in different ways. And what about this like tongue thing? Have you ever come across that? I remember reading about that in regards to Eric as well, like this tongue sensor that like where you look.
Oh yeah, the BrainPort.
No, yeah, not the click. Yeah, the BrainPort. That's it. Yeah. So like the where you're like looking at a rock wall or whatever, and you can kind of see the handholds, or like you feel it on your tongue. You feel it like imprinted with vibrations or something. Have you ever tried? Have you ever used one of those?
I haven't used one, but I do know a number of characters. I met someone that sat either on the board or invested or was one of the developers at one time, and it's an interesting piece of equipment that uses an optical sensor like a camera on glasses, and then that feeds the photons that hit the optical sensor are turned into electrical energy, and that hits a sensor that sits on the roof of the mouth, and you put your tongue against it, and I think it has electrodes, and it draws an image on the tongue, which interfaces with the nerves that I guess closely tie into the visual, you know, cortex in the brain. And so you teach yourself how to see things through touch, really, because you're using your tongue though it's a different way to see the world. You know, it's not seeing like what we think of as seeing with our eyes, but I have not been able to try it. I've heard that it works well. You just have to train yourself to learn how to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember Eric, he wrote something about like he was sliding an orange like back and forth on a table, something like that, or maybe it was a ball, but I don't know, something round. And he was using this thing to try and like catch where it was going to roll off the table and stuff. And I think I remember him saying like his daughter was really impressed, and it just sounds really cool. And I imagine over the next few years there's going to be way more like amazing assistive technologies and things like that coming out. They're just going to open up hopefully new possibilities and new doors.
Exactly. It's I would say that technology, you know, that this technology that's going to interface with the body is going to be pretty amazing. More and more as we drive into the future.
Yeah, even in our lifetimes, going by average life expectancy, I expect that we'll see huge advancements. I mean, we're at that age, aren't we? In that. I mean, like we as humans are at that age in terms of the advancements we're making now are crazy. So,
it's you know, instead of a guide dog, there may be some sort of robotic machine that uses sensors and all kinds of things, GPS receivers and antennas to send information to maybe internally into your mind or to at least to a speaker or something, you know, and it just might be a step forward. You know, whether I don't know what I feel about some of it, but maybe it'll become more normal. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've pretty much got self-driving cars, so they should be able to do something. You know, so some things like that. Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about a couple of I know we don't have too long, but tell me about some of your expeditions. Some of your, say, if you want to talk about the Colorado River, or if you want to talk about some of the mountains you've climbed, or just if you've got any really cool stories from the things you've done, just share a couple of bits and bobs with me. Sure.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story about a climb that went wrong, you know, of the many climbs I've been on. I was climbing in the Caucasus in Russia on a mountain called Mount Elbrus.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the tallest mountain,
In Europe, I think, right?
Europe, Europe, Asia, not Asia, but Europe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mount Blanc would be the tallest if we didn't go so far east, but in this particular climb, it's a mountaineering expedition. We're trying to summit the peak, move from the base of the mountain to the very summit, and I have to pack a lot of the same equipment, crampons, these big spikes that go on your feet, these high altitude mountaineering boots, having the right kind of pack, and water systems, for dealing with the cold conditions, and you don't want your water to freeze, and just packing food and whatever, and working with a team and having a guide. And we were on this mountain, and we got caught in a storm, and one of our team members was sick, and ultimately we turned around from the summit. We didn't summit close to, just 1,000 feet or so shy from the summit. And we started on our way back down. And some mountains, they have wands, these stakes that humans will put in the snow, or ground, so that you can turn around and walk back. And it's primarily helpful, if you don't have aids, navigational aids, like compasses and things, or you don't have visual, reference, because it's 0-0 conditions, wide out in the air and wide out on the ground. And so we turned around, and the person that was leading the team of like 5 of us, I was at the very back of this rope team, lost track of the wands, and we got wandered off, and we got lost in a thunderstorm above tree level. Lightning was striking around us, and thunder. And I had a guy that was connected to me that fell in a crevasse. I saved him from falling.
No way.
I felt the rope go tight, and he fell in, and I dropped and kicked my crampons in and kept him, and then pulled him out. And
in the middle of a storm.
In the middle of a storm, it was quite terrifying.
Yeah.
I was thinking in my mind, I think I've pushed the limits. Let's slow down a little bit after this trip, and reassess, and so, that we of course got off the mountain with a lot of teamwork and effort. And it was a 15, 16-hour day being lost in this weather. We barely made it back by sundown, but that's why you leave early for summits, when you're climbing, so you have daylight, and more warmth, even if it's a horrible day, having some daylight is better than the cold of the night, but, and then I've been on adventures on the water. You mentioned Colorado River and kayaking. I kayaked 226 miles of the Grand Canyon, on the Colorado River. Amazing. And it's a totally different experience. It's super hot, very isolated part of the world, remote, deep in a canyon, with massive, massive waves. These wave trains, they're pool drops, meaning the water accelerates on a decline and then hits some sort of rock formation or something under the water, or a change, or it turns, maybe the river turns, and that causes some, acceleration of the water and the hydraulics. The water changes, it explodes and turns into, this insane white water that people go and try to find. And I was part of a team of 5 veterans, blind vets that went and kayaked the Grand Canyon. And it was probably the most intense experience in my life, next to serving in the military and doing and everything I've done as a blind person. Took a lot of nerves of steel and focus and resolve, and a lot of training. I spent 3 years leading up to the event just training on all kinds of whitewater across the country, testing myself and being upside down and executing what we call a combat roll, or a roll, to right your kayak. And so I was in my own kayak, and I was again working with teammates that called out communication.
Right. I was going to ask about that because I know, like Eric and Lonnie had different styles. Lonnie Bedwell, another like adventuring blind guy.
Yes.
But yeah, I know they had very different styles. Like Lonnie loved the bit somebody calling out in front, I think, if I'm right, and Eric preferred like the radios and things like that. So what was your preference?
Well, I've tried a number of things, or 3 things, and add one to that. So I've tried systems on flat water. It works best. Technology is very difficult in water, unless you have some really expensive advanced stuff. It's very violent water will just get in everything, and so it's the same thing with the sand down there, the grit of the moon dust, as we call it, but Lonnie, I used Lonnie's technique to basically how should I say it, navigate through we had a lead guide, a secondary, and a sweep, so 3 kayakers that are sighted that are working with me. And the lead guide would be out in front of me and get me set up above a rapid. Yeah. And I would follow him as closely as possible to get past the threshold of the top of the rapid. Once you push through that you're beyond the danger generally on the Grand Canyon. And you just try to keep following him. Now, if he goes upside down and I go upside down and I come up and I can't hear him, my secondary hopefully didn't go down, and my third, the sweep, is still up, and I have 2 more chances of having a guide or someone be there if my primary guide doesn't come back up. And they're just calling out different kinds of communication that we've developed to get us to get back on track. And we just go charging, through the rapids and come out the other end. And it's very intense, because water will take you anywhere. And and climbing on mountains, it's similar. I follow the crunch of feet, or I follow a bear bell, or something. But the other technique that I've used kayaking, just to explain one more technique, is I'll put a speaker system on the back of the kayak or on the back of the person that's guiding me, and I can engage a specific type of audio that I can follow that's repetitious. So I stay behind this. If you imagine a sound tunnel, like a funnel of sound, I am staying in that funnel. The closer I am to the funnel, the triangle, the closer I am to my guide, the better, more accurate I will be with following him. If I linger too far back from his voice or from a speaker noise, it'll take me longer to make a turn, or I'll lag behind his turn or something. So that's kind of just to give your listeners perspective.
No, thank you. It's fascinating. And obviously, like we said a minute ago, everybody kind of has their own preference, I guess. And I don't know if you did this at all, but I remember I think it was Eric going down there with Lonnie. Didn't he sometimes like to go in front and just go like completely solo? Like sometimes you just end up being solo. Yeah. Because no one's there. Yeah, my whole team would be upside down sometimes. So that did actually happen. For me, So Lonnie loves to, I've done it too on a lot of rivers. I don't like to push, the limit too much, but with some of that, but because this is dangerous. It's not like it's dangerous for anybody at the end of the day. It's a risky event, or sport to participate in. Also terrifying, even if you're looking at it. If you're sighted, I've never been, but I've watched videos and I've seen some small rapids. Like this thing must be absolutely terrifying to look at. And if you can't see it, but you've heard the stories, I can only imagine like what your imagination is conjuring up.
It roars. Yeah, I mean the rapid, you feel it in your chest. I mean it carved the earth. Over millennia, so it's and when we get off the river to scout a rapid above it, like right before we go through, and you have that time to hear and listen, you're listening to the rapid just roar, and like you're just like, I don't know if I want to go in it, but once you commit in your kayak, there's no turning around. That's the scary thing. It's different from walking, on a trail, you're walking, I'm done. I'm not going to keep walking up the mountain. Yeah. Once you're like in the rapid, you have to paddle through it. You have to get through it. And it's better to be in your boat than swimming in the rapid. it's even more terrifying.
Which is the only way off, ironically, isn't it? It's like, if you want to get off, you have to jump out of your boat and swim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, swimming is not a good idea in big rapids, but
sure.
But yeah.
So it's a bit like being on a roller coaster. Like, you're scared and you're sitting there, and then as soon as it starts, there's no
turning back.
You're on the ride.
You're on the ride. So hold on.
Yeah.
But water, yeah, these are amazing experiences that I'm willing to push the limit for, and experiment with and try with a lot of guidance and a lot of training. It's not like someone just got in a boat and went. That would be reckless, you know.
Yeah.
But maybe some people consider this reckless too.
But it would be reckless as well if I got in a boat and I can see, but that would be reckless if I tried to go down the Grand Canyon, wouldn't it? That would be incredible. Like, so yeah. Regardless, you have to train a lot, and it's hard, I guess, to get into a good position to go down these big rapids. Yeah, regardless of whether you sight. So it just makes that challenge even more formidable. But still, you've shown, Lonnie's shown, Eric's shown, and I'm sure plenty of others that it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, There's people that don't do these kinds of things that say it's reckless. They just say, it's just to be outside and climbing a mountain, hiking is a reckless thing to do. So it's all perspective and
exactly
what people are willing.
One person's reckless is another person's like fun Sunday,
Yeah, I mean, there's astronauts, right? They go to space and on a rocket, a bomb.
Exactly. That was actually my last guest before you was an astronaut.
Oh, so cool! Yeah, I love the cosmos. Me too. That's cool.
Me too.
Cool. I'm gonna go listen to that now and get off this.
It's not out yet, so you're gonna have to wait a little bit.
That's right. I'll wait. I'll be waiting for that one.
But by the time this is out, it will be out. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to go and check it out, you can go and check it out. That's fine.
There you go.
Were there any other like amazing stories from on the rapids, on the canyon, or was it kind of mostly straightforward?
Oh, there was all kinds of we a day in the life in the canyon is quite remarkable, because there's, once you get off the river where we camp, there's places to explore, places to go hike and rock climb. And so, we would make our way to these slot canyons and climb through these waterfalls. And it was quite amazing just to climb hand and feet through these tiny cascading waterfalls and get up in this miniature, slot canyon within the Grand Canyon. And it's just an amazing place. And every day there was all these little adventures and wildlife and animals, and great food and music. We would play. We brought instruments in some of the big rafts, and we'd create music and have good drink and food, and it was just a fun way to live life,
Yeah. That's awesome. We haven't even talked about music and your drums and stuff.
I know.
I mean, that's cool.
Whatever
as
you
well.
have time for, man.
Yeah. I watched your video of you drumming the other day with you got like an electric kit. Really impressive stuff. Like, I used to drum a little bit when I was a kid, and I kind of still can do it. I can still do a very basic few different things, but you're better than me, and you can't see what you're doing. Like, it's significantly better than me as well, I would say. Comfortably,
Yeah, I still think of myself as a very much a novice. And learning how to do everything again, blind and with this hand adaptation, was very challenging. But music is so therapeutic, and I for a lot of people, I love it. And when you get with a musician that and you're jamming and you just sync, it's just a fun experience. That's what I'm about, is having a good time, whether I'm good or bad, I'll make some noise. But yeah. That's what I'm doing now is studying how to be an audio engineer and music producer. Yeah. We'll see where it takes me, but yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's slightly safer choice than adventuring and things like that, right? But you could do both. You could do both.
Well, if you haven't already, if you can't tell already, I plan a lot, and I'm planning for, to be hopefully alive for a long time. And music, I think I can do into my old age, and have fun with that. So
that is very cool. On that, you mentioned you plan a lot. I was just going to ask you, as kind of as we do gradually bring this to a close, I was going to ask you if you've got anything planned in terms of expeditions or climbs or kayaking or just anything, that you've got in the books.
Yeah. COVID has been challenging for everybody, and it's caused a lot of odd organized things to stop. Of course, we can run into the wilderness and do things, and I did a little bit of that during COVID. I think a big thing that's it's being cooked up right now. I'm about to leave at the end of the month, is a transatlantic race and a sailboat.
Wow. Cool.
And trying to develop some ways for me to participate and be actively involved and with either driving the boat or executing different kinds of tasks on the sailboat. So, but that might be 2 years out. I'll be doing a lot of different training on different sailboats in different places, but it would be from New York to England.
Wow!
And so I think 2 years from now, July, maybe this time frame, we will set out from New York to touch land there in the UK.
That sounds awesome.
But it'll be an epic adventure through some rough seas. I'm learning more and more about it, and I have sailed, just not open ocean, like this.
That's
along
big
the coast.
Open ocean,
big, exactly. Middle of nowhere, makes you think.
The Atlantic as well, right? So it's going to be cold.
I joke though. It all looks the same to me. So wherever I go,
temperatures vary though, right? The temperatures vary.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. But it can be excruciating.
I bet. But that sounds amazing. And I'm assuming you're going to do loads of little bits and bobs here and there, just casual climbing and stuff as you gear up to that. But
always trying to do that.
I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that sail. That does sound, like you say, epic. Look, one little question, not quite the last yet, maybe the penultimate, unless I get distracted and ask you something else. And this might be a bit of a bizarre question, and I hope I can get my words out okay. But in terms of like faces, and partly about the memory of faces, like in terms of remembering people that you knew before you lost your sight. Firstly, how is that now? Have you still got clear images of lots of people from before you lost your sight, or does it kind of gradually, I guess, change and merge with different other memories? And can you expand on that a little bit? Again, it was a bit of a confusingly worded question.
No, I get that question actually from time to time. I still have my memory of the world. And I always tap into that when I'm imagining places I've never been, or my dad grew up. I grew up with my father's National Geographic magazines, and I would always look at them and imagine being in those places. And so I still, even if I didn't travel somewhere, I have this Rolodex or these images that that I can look back on. But faces, I used to wonder early on about who I was meeting and what people look like. And it was an interesting thing. And I don't wonder so much anymore because I tap into other things that are actively there, how people carry themselves in speech and talk about their life and how they sound and, happy or sad. And, it's just, again, a different perspective, but, I sometimes play the game with people because, I grew up watching movies, and so actors are a good reference. And so humans have different facial features and stuff that are similar sometimes because of where they come from. And so some people look more similar or a combination, right? So that's what we'll play is that game, so I kind of look like, whatever, people will be like, I look like Keanu Reeves and Bruce Lee or something, and so, those are the interesting conversations I have with people. And I might leave that in my mind when I meet someone but I'm not forcing it there. It's just something that naturally happens. And, early on I did wonder a lot, about things. now if I'm interested, I ask a question and they paint the picture. But everybody speaks differently about things, colors. People see colors differently.
Yeah.
You ask what is the color of this or something, and one person will say, that's beige or something. That's tan. No, that's brown. That's, so what is that? That's so interesting, right?
It's like if somebody had been blind since birth, how would you even begin to explain what colors were, Yeah.
I'm very thankful that I had some sight.
Yeah.
And now I'm just focusing on, the senses I have. So,
yeah. So. Of course I'm sure it made it harder for you to lose it, obviously, because if you're born with it, you just adapt from day one. But yeah, you had a lot of, you were able to take a lot in and have a lot of amazing experiences that you're still doing, in fact, aren't you? And this, Let me ask you kind of a similar question, but in a more personal sense and, a bit of fun, whatever you want to kind of go with it. But in your mind, I don't know, like you said, you don't put a lot of pressure on that and you don't really try to kind of think about what somebody looks like. But do you have in your mind right now, as you're talking to me, a kind of vague image of like a guess almost? Because I'm the only basis I have for this is if I'm reading a book or whatever, right? And I can't see the people that they're in the book or that they're writing about. And so I kind of, obviously my imagination will create some kind of what they look like and that kind of stuff. Have you got in your mind right now an idea of what you would, just an image of me, or is it you don't do it, you're just focusing on my voice and things like that?
Well, now that you've opened my mind to it, I'm thinking, and then, I just go into this, I think of it in a logical manner. I think about the accent.
Yeah.
But the accent can throw you. It doesn't necessarily give you an answer. There's plenty of people, I'm half Filipino, Lithuanian. I don't think people would notice, those kinds of things from the way I speak. But, I can tell that you have a British, accent and, and then I kind of think of Caucasian. I think, brown hair, maybe light eyes, but you could have brown eyes. Maybe, you just it's just guesswork really at the end of the day. I mean, but, I could be totally wrong. You could be Asian, you could be, I've met plenty of people from all over the world that just have an interesting accent, but they're totally from a totally different place than where that accent is from. And so it's, sometimes people can get offended. So I don't know if people want to know, I'll try a guess, but yeah, before though, you asked me, I wasn't wondering too much. I thought about where you're from, like your accent, and then talking about France and your girlfriend and things. And that's cool. And it makes me think of maybe the experiences you've had growing up in those locations, and because I've been to them and I think about those kinds of things. That's what comes to mind. But what you look like, unfortunately, it's like I just out of sight, out of mind. It's really odd. It's just kind of how we are sometimes, unless you cue yourself, in your own thoughts and like, okay,
I get it. So you were pretty close. You're not bad, not bad. Okay, so firstly, Caucasian. That's me, rather pale, on the pale side. I'll hold my hand up to that, unfortunately. My hair would probably be brown now. You look real dark to me. So. Thanks, man.
Good tan.
I've been working on it. I really... hair-wise, it would probably be now between kind of a blondie and a brown, probably closer to a brown. However, I've shaved it off. Because it's not as wonderful as yours. It is receding a fair bit.
I was going to say short hair. I was going to say like short hair, like mine. But I guess you say
shorter. Yeah, I've taken the decision to just get rid of it, and it's just buzzed like just next to my scalp, basically. I had a beard yesterday, but my look is generally just a mustache. That's quite long and like curled up at the sides, almost in cool. Like I don't know if the camera picks it up that well, but yeah. Like, I guess I could imagine like a stereotypical French guy on an old movie or something like that. I don't know if that's where the influence came from. One day I just decided, like, screw it. Let's just rock a mustache.
Why not?
Just kind of, I think it was a COVID baby, really. I think since the first lockdowns, I just started growing it out, and I was like, I'm just going to see how far I can grow this. And I'm still working on it.
No, I get that. Yeah. I grew out my hair really long. I had some pretty long hair to my shoulders at times, in COVID.
Yeah, your hair is nice, man. You're doing well on
thanks,
the hair.
Thanks, man. I like it short, to be honest, but sometimes I can deal with it being long, especially when it's cold outside on expeditions.
Yeah,
it's the natural hat.
Yeah, I suffer more in the winter since shaving it all off, for sure. Look, so let me to bring this to a kind of finish, and to let you get back to your day. Let me ask you if you have got any kind of message or any words that you want to share with anybody listening or watching this right now. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy or inspirational or whatever, anything you want to say to anybody.
Definitely. I have not, people ask this sometimes, and I don't often say it, but I speak about it. Sometimes people think about, mostly about post-traumatic stress and the disorder of it. But I think people should focus on post-traumatic growth at some point in their recovery, and or if they're dealing with something traumatic, and think about how trauma can help you grow too sometimes, and really that's ultimately what you have to try to do. I mean, in my opinion, so that's really it. I mean, post-traumatic growth, I think, is something is so opposite of what people are usually thinking about when they hear those acronyms or those concepts. So
I like that. I love that. I guess we should try and look at it like that, like post-traumatic stress is maybe the initial part, and then it needs to become post-traumatic growth, as and when each individual is ready to try and push it into that stage.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
We can only hope that we all can get past whatever we're dealing with. There are those situations, of course, that are not so easy, but definitely drive on.
Awesome, man. I love it. Well, look, thank you so much for today, taking the time and for sharing all that. This was a lot of fun. It was really cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. A pleasure. Thanks, Steve. And I'll speak to you soon.
You take care.
You too, man.
Goodbye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Steve Baskis. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe and consider sharing it with a friend. Please give both us, Have You Met Podcast, and Steve Baskis a follow on social media. All links are in the description. Be nice, be happy, be cool.